punishment runs the gamut. And we as a species have evolved to the point where we're not as inhumane, some would say, as we were centuries ago, when punishment may be to cut off your hands, gouge out your eyes, to stretch you on a board in front of the populace and eviscerate you. Those kinds of things, that was punishment. Put you in the stocks so you can be shamed and humiliated, or you can be pelted with rotten vegetables or stones until you died. This was punishment at a time when man's understanding of humanity was at its basics. So we've grown up a bit, And then we invented something called the penal system, or places of internment. You know, they call penitentiaries for what reason? Does anyone know?
You're paying your penance by being there.
Smart
before
man.
God.
Paying your penance.
Yes, this was a place of penance. And what was meant by that? In the establishment of the United States from the 1600s pretty much on, when we had an influx of folk coming from Europe, and we had an overwhelmingly Christian majority in this country, and they were the basic Christians, Puritans and Pilgrims, and their understanding of the scriptures, again, was word literal. So what they thought was that in terms of punishment, we're gonna stop doing what we've been doing to punish our citizens this way, because we're killing them, or we're maiming them, or we're blinding them, or we're ruining for any kind of productive enterprise that they could provide the community. So this is what we're gonna do. We're gonna build a place where we could place these folk who violate our laws. We're gonna put them in a cell the same way that monks supplicate themselves, get on their knees and pray to God for penance. We're gonna do the same thing to these people that violate our laws. And it was rough. And that's what they did. They built these places out of stone, out of concrete, out of blocks and bricks. And there was a bed in there, there was a kneeler, and that was it. You had nothing else. You had scripture. Now, this was in the 1800s. And when I went to prison in the 1960s, it was still like that. Of course, we didn't have the kneeler, so which meant we did not have to get on our knees and kneel and pray for penance as a form of supplication for our crimes. We didn't have to do that. But everything else was the same. We had the Bible in the cell. We had the cell which had nothing in it. It was stark. It had a bed. It had a sink and a toilet. That was it. I tell people that in the early days, again, talking about punishment and how punishment changes. For breakfast, we were fed. When I say we, I mean all of us. 2 pieces of bread and a cup of black coffee. Every morning, 2 pieces of bread, a cup of black coffee. You say, wow. Well, let me tell you something. After about a year or 2 or 5 or 10 or 15, I put those 2 pieces of bread, that cup of black coffee, you salivate waiting for it.
You salivate waiting for it.
Oh, because the mind does that. All that we had was the ability to think, to imagine, and to create. And every bite I took of that little piece of white bread tasted like filet mignon, which I had never tasted, but I'd heard about it. Or it tasted like turkey or steak or ice cream. The mind does this. But again, getting back to punishment. So you go to prison for what reason? to gain penance, your rightful place to walk amongst men. You go to prison also, and this is from the Old Testament, because of an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, because of vengeance, because society itself wants to exact something from you that's hurtful and that's painful that you won't forget, and that they'll feel satisfied by its inaction. Some years later, you had some very intelligent people that were sitting, that were thinking, that were like you. Educators and academicians and scholars and students who said, is this form of punishment even working? Because why are we doing it? If over 95% of the people in prison are going to come home one day, because they are, everyone is not doing life. The majority of people that are in prison are going to come home, and they're going to be your neighbors. In fact, they may already be your neighbors. They may be part of your family. There was a time when I would ask that question, how many people in here, in this room right now, either know someone that's been in prison, have someone in their family that's been in prison, or there's someone in their neighborhood that's been in prison? By show of hands, let me see. Whew. There was a
That's
time,
50%.
it may have been only 1 or 2 or 3 hands that were raised. What I see now is the impact, and we'll talk about this later, of the criminal justice system and mass incarceration, prison industrial complex. But again, I deviate. So punishment should be for a reason these very astute and intelligent folks thought. And the reason should be to make and create better citizens. I mean, doesn't that seem logical? If we're going to put somebody in prison and they're going to come out, the question should be, how do we want them coming out? Do we want them coming out better than they were when they went in? You think? Sure. I mean, stands to reason. And how can we do that? By educating them, by training them, by giving them skills, giving them an awareness of who they are and their role they play in society. So there was a time when the system of punishment began to deviate away from its old frame and move toward that, and it was called rehabilitation. And one last thing.
Okay.
It was called rehabilitation. I, for one, was so glad. I was so glad to see it coming in. Yes.
So we've moved from talking about punishment, how it was originally designed, and how it hadn't moved much by the time you were entering the system in 1969. Then you also started to see that it went towards rehabilitation. Before we start talking about rehabilitation, I just wanted to open it up. Does anyone have a question right now about punishment or when it's necessary or what it is? Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the death penalty? Should it be applied? What are the appropriate times to be applied? And then rehabilitation, I guess, can be later.
Good question. And the only way I can answer that is to say that there's no blanket explanation as to when it should be applied. I mean, everything is so, just like we as individuals are oh so different, and circumstances can be oh so different. Intent has to be involved. Severity of the actions have to be considered. Aggravating circumstances have to be considered. The state of mind of the individual in terms of disability, cognitive, so many things have to be considered. And there are two slates that are normally used to ascertain that. One is aggravating circumstances, things that go against this individual and that highlight how horrendous this act may have been. And mitigating circumstances, things that work in his favor in terms of, was this an accident? Because people die by virtue of accidents. or things that were unintended.
Are you saying that? So I feel like you're saying you're not against the death penalty, but a lot has to really be considered.
Of course.
And most of the time we miss all the things that need to be considered.
Of course. And, well, having been in prison for as long as I was, having known individuals that were sentenced to the death penalty, having been aware of the fact that too many people that are sentenced to the death sentence or the death penalty are later on judged innocent or found evidence is accrued that says, wait a minute, they didn't do this. And in a lot of those cases, it was too late to save this person. So they died. They were killed. They were murdered. So to say that I am not against the death penalty is not really correct. I don't want to see anyone put to death. Not put to death. Not by man's hand. I definitely don't want to see the state doing this. I don't want to see people sitting behind a bench saying, I sentence you to die. And then you're killed. I don't want to see that. Now, again, the question is, what do we do with horrendous kinds of cases, brother? Or do we just say, okay, go ahead, you're free? No. That's why we have penitentiaries. So, me saying that is saying I am not a strict and staunch abolitionist. I don't believe that prisons today should be razed to the ground. Not today. Why? Because we're not there yet. We're not there yet as a species. We're not there yet as human beings who know how to act as human beings and live amongst human beings. Again, we go back to what I said is the purpose of correction.
1 second. I feel like sometimes, too, when we want to think about the death penalty, it's coming back to, can we feel right about righting a wrong? And the death penalty can satisfy that. And Irvin's like, I have actually known people who suffered and have been murdered themselves for wrong information.
Yes.
And before we go on to that, I just want to open up to one more question up there.
You briefly spoke about the death penalty. If we talk about the opposite, you obviously stated that it was a mistake. The end result wasn't your intention. But how much do you think we should take intent into account? Because I don't think we take it that much into account. Because obviously if it's a mistake, it's different. And if it's deliberate, it's different.
Sure.
Wait, hold on. You're saying how much do we take intent into account when we decide punishment?
Correct.
And you're saying you don't think our justice system takes intent to account?
I don't think they take into... I mean, I can't speak for the justice system, but I was wondering his opinion on the fact that if it's taken into account or if not.
If it's even taken into account at all, intent.
Because for
intent
a mistake to me, that it sounds like you've paid way too much.
Well, in answer to your question, it should be taken into account. Of course it should be. What was the state of mind of this individual when he did what caused the death of another person? How was he thinking? What was he we're talking about intent. What was he intending to happen? Now, was it reckless? Was it premeditated? Was it well thought out and planned? Of course, intent has to be taken into consideration, and which is why we go before a board or a panel of individuals that throughout history have been those who have been given the mantle of judging other men, judging women, the judges. We don't just, today, being called a judge is almost a political kind of thing. It's a shame, but it's devolved into that. But there was a time, you've all heard of the wisdom of Solomon, of course. Some kind of way you heard it. And he was supposed to have been a very wise man, a king. And the king, quite often during those days, is the one that judge whoever was the wrongdoer. And there's an analogy that's brought up when two women appear before Solomon, and each one accuses the other one of stealing her baby. This is my baby. No, this is my baby. I gave birth to this is my baby. And Solomon says, after he listened and they hassled and wrangled, and he says, okay, this is what I'm going to do. Since neither one of you have convinced me that the other one is the mother, I'm going to cut this baby in half and give you half and give you half. Say, what? Wise Solomon. One woman says, yes, okay then, I'll take half. Just have my child, I'll take half. And the other one says, look, please, O king, please spare my child's life. Give the child to this woman so that the child may live. And of course, Solomon made his decision based on that. Said, well, you evidently are the mother of this child. Because it shows through with your love and the need that you have to spare your child's life with this other woman. So we're talking about wisdom. Wisdom through age, I'm sorry to say. Because some of you are wise. You're young.
The old souls.
You're definitely intelligent. You're definitely intelligent and you're on the right path. But some of you have achieved and attained wisdom at such an early age. And I applaud you. I take my hat off to you. It took me a while. And I'm not just saying this to pat myself on the back, but it took me a while and a lot of experience to be able to reason to the degree where quite often I am correct in my assumptions and my assertions. And my perspective on life quite often is listened to.
And so you're saying intent is taken into account, but there's a purveyor, there's a judge. It just almost doesn't matter.
No. But that's why at one point we selected individuals as judges who exhibited those traits. Experience, wisdom, knowledge, compassion, fairness, justice.
I love how you're making sure we understand the roles in the system.
Oh,
it's
yes.
not just a psychological thing. It's not just about what you can prove. It's about all the actors.
Indeed.
And you're reminding us that judges aren't people who just went to school for a long time. They're supposed to be people who exhibit what you described.
The reason I brought up that little dichotomy is because we have moved somewhat away from that. Oh, what do you mean by that?
What did we move away from?
If you have something like mandatory sentencing, which a lot of you know what that is, 3 strikes you're out, which doesn't take into account who you are, your background, your lifestyle, your intent. But you did this 3 times, okay, this was going to happen to you. Wait a minute.
I just want to make sure you know that we're still answering your question.
Yes.
When we're talking about intent, right?
Indeed.
It's still It's another example of how, and it's also your question with punishment in the death system, like the death penalty. Irv, you're saying that it doesn't matter. We're moving away from a system where you can judge intent when it's a 3 strikes and you're out, or you did this type of crime. Therefore, it's automatically going to be this type of punishment, and the judge's discretion is not as relevant.
Very well said. And again, those are the days that we've moved into.